Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. Today I'm taking you to the Ultra League, where this trainer is running a buffed Pokemon that has a monster attack stat in the Ultra League, and that is Shadow Shiny Honchkrow. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Drew, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now it goes without saying, do not use Shadow Honchkrow in the Ultra League if you care about your elo whatsoever. It is insanely glassy. However, with the big rework to Peck, Drew brings it to the Ultra League, and the battles that follow are glorious. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we see Shadow Golurk leading into a Sucker Punch Belly Bolt. The unfortunate thing about Golurk in this matchup is that Belly Bolt actually has win cons because Sucker Punch hits for massive super effective damage. Belly Bolt will shield up Dynamic Punch. Belly Bolt tries for the farm down but is unsuccessful, as Golurk is going to make a last second Shadow Punch and force both shields. The unfortunate thing is that the remainder of this team is all weak to Electric. In comes Empoleon. Empoleon is going to be no shielding, Parabolic Charge, big damage, and the opponent already has a second Parabolic locked and loaded. Both Golurk and now Empoleon have been fully sacrificed to set up the closer to shield Shadow Shiny Honchkrow. Opponent bails out of the Belly Bolt and sends in Tentacruel just to get absolutely smacked by a Dark Pulse. Honchkrow has to shield everything. Honchkrow is too frail, it cannot take even a single hit. Honchkrow looking for the farm down, Tentacruel hangs on 1 HP, that is devastating. Honchkrow fails the farm down and has to burn the final shield. What will the opponent have in the back? They're waiting the timer, it's Gastrodon, there's the catch attempt, it is not successful, and now Honchkrow has the back-to-back Dark Pulses, which means this Gastrodon is about to get absolutely destroyed. Dark Pulse number 1 is gonna land, now going for the Sky Attack for Charge Attack number 2, down goes Gastrodon, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, oh my goodness, what a lead. Shadow Golurk into Jirachi. Jirachi safe switches into a Shadow Kingdra. Kingdra going to be immediately met with a Shadow Punch from the Golurk. Shadow Punch is going to be shielded. Golurk deciding to stay in here, but it's paying a heavy price. Does Golurk decide to call a Swift? No, puts up the shield, and unfortunately it is going to be the Swift bait from that Kingdra. Shadow Punch number 2 from the Golurk gets the final shield, aggressive pivot into the Shadow Shiny Honchkrow. Even a Swift would do a lot of damage. Honchkrow shields, it's the Outrage. Oh my, that probably would have KO'd an entire flock of Honchkrow. And the opponent is going to bring out their final Pokemon, which is Corviknight. It looks like Corviknight will get 2-shot by Dark Pulse. Air Cutter's not going to do a lot. If they throw Payback, Payback would obviously hurt, but it is resisted. They go for the Payback. That move definitely did not look resisted. My goodness. Corviknight gonna get KO'd by the Dark Pulse. In comes Kingdra. Kingdra gets farmed down. Jirachi's not gonna be able to do anything. Oh my, this is a sweep. A full Honchkrow sweep, 1v3. Dark Pulse picks up the KO, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Shadow Golurk into Giratina. Giratina obviously did get a pretty big rework this season. Dragon Breath now charging substantially faster, but Dragon Claw lost a lot of its pacing in exchange for more damage. Shadow Punch is going to be shielded up by the Giratina. Giratina will return fire. Golurk going to decide to no shield. Dragon Claw is going to land, and that's some pretty substantial damage. Golurk is able to withstand these Dragon Breaths, getting to a second Shadow Punch. This Shadow Punch is going to be no shielded. In comes Honchkrow. Opponent sends out Cobalion, and Cobalion can probably just do what they're doing, which is go straight Sacred Sword. That is how frail we are talking about with Shadow Honchkrow. Shadow Honchkrow farming up just shy of 100 energy, unleashing Sky Attack. Sky Attack is going to land, and we actually see a farm down from the Honchkrow. In comes Lapras. Oh no. And they just have nothing for Honchkrow at this point. Honchkrow launches Sky Attack. That's going to deal half of their health, and the catch, adding insult to injury. Say it ain't so. Catching the Sparkling Aria back onto the Empoleon. In comes Giratina. Giratina is now going to go for the Shadow Sneak, but Shadow Sneak is a very weak move. Empoleon gets a full farm down, and this game is just absolutely over. Back in comes the Lapras. The opponent not giving up yet, but the writing is absolutely on the wall. Empoleon not even going to throw. Empoleon says, it's not my job to take this KO, it's Honchkrow's. In comes Honchkrow, switch timers up, there is the Sky Attack, down goes Lapras, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Shadow Golurk. Oh, very bad lead into Feraligatr. Now this is going to be very tricky, as Feraligatr obviously has a pretty significant pacing advantage. Golurk will throw on alignment, because if Golurk tried to throw in good timing, then Feraligatr would have been able to force a first shield. So Golurk is actually just going to fully sacrifice itself, taking the shield advantage for the back line, and in comes Honchkrow. Honchkrow will have to respect absolutely everything here, as Shadow Feraligatr just hits way too hard. Honchkrow gonna look for a Peck farm down, not gonna get the Peck farm down, but a double shield will lead this Honchkrow with a ton of energy and almost full HP. In comes Empoleon, and this is going to be a tricky game. Empoleon immediately under threat from the Dark Pulse. That's going to connect, and we see a beautiful catch into the mirror. And the opponent went for a Drill Peck. I guess they were trying to cover for a catch, but they weren't expecting a catch onto Empoleon. Honchkrow is glassy enough that it was going to feint to either move. Now they will go for the Hydro and get fully farmed down. Empoleon has a ton of energy. In comes Regidrago, but no! The opponent with a peekaboo catch of a lifetime onto that Feraligatr. And I think that catch just won the opponent this game. What a beautiful play. Drill Peck going to connect into the Regidrago, but now the Regidrago still has their shield intact. Honchkrow has energy, but the opponent can just always save the shield. Regidrago will fire off a charge attack right before Empoleon is able to make it to another Drill Peck. Dragon Energy picks up the KO. In comes the Honchkrow, but the opponent has another one loaded. What a beautiful catch from the opponent. Everything looked dire, but with that peekaboo catch, they get right back in the game and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Shadow Golurk into Como-O in the next match. Como-O is a Pokemon that I have tried out quite a bit. Honestly, to me, Como-O felt a bit awkward to use. I ended up definitely preferring Kyurem or Regidrago over Como-O. Como-O, Clanging Scales would easily one-hit KO, so we will see a shield. Now the opponent is going to save switch into Blastoise. Blastoise is a terrible matchup into Empoleon, so I wouldn't be surprised to see an attempt at grabbing a shield, which is unfortunately unsuccessful, and then Empoleon getting brought in. The Empoleon switching here does desync the switch timers quite significantly. The good news is the opponent can't really do much of any damage. Empoleon is just such a wall to Blastoise. Blastoise goes for yet another Hydro. Empoleon will now go for the Drill Peck. This Drill Peck not going to threaten a KO, as Blastoise is very bulky, but Blastoise puts up a shield. In comes Como-O, and Como-O survives that farm down attempt. They make the upper hand, down goes Empoleon, and back in comes the Golurk. The opponent did save a little bit of energy on that Blastoise. Do we see the Blastoise get brought in here? Yes, we do. But Golurk gets the outpace. This Shadow Punch will inflict some very nice damage onto the Blastoise. Blastoise gets farmed down. What do they have in the back? It's going to be, oh my goodness, Armored Mewtwo. Surely it's Dark Pulse time. Shadow Punch gets no shielded. Oh, that no shield is actually a little bit unfortunate, as if they shielded, then obviously Dark Pulse was KOing, but now with that no shield, it's going to be up to fast moves to try and win this game. The good news is these Pecks are doing so much damage. I was not expecting Armored Mewtwo to get melted like that. Dynamic Punch lands, Honchkrow hangs on, not by much, and secures the win. Great lead in the next match, Shadow Golurk into Empoleon. Opponent save switches into Togekiss, and clearly they do not fear Belly Bolt whatsoever, as so far their entire line is incredibly weak to Electric. Hydro Cannon will be shielded up by the Togekiss. I just simply don't believe that Empoleon will get one shot here. Empoleon should be able to tank at least one Aura Sphere, and it looks like Drew agrees. With the no shield, Empoleon will lose charge attack priority to the Togekiss. Empoleon putting up the shield, however, safe in the knowledge that Togekiss is unlikely to be able to get a full Peck farm down. The opponent is going to agree. They pivot back into the Empoleon. Empoleon getting an energy advantage. Golurk has to put up the shield, as Hydro Cannon would inflict devastating damage. Golurk now going to go for a Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch should be enough to knock out the Empoleon from this health range, and down it goes. In the back, look at the spice. Is that a Gallade? That is a Confusion Gallade. Honestly, with Gallade having Psycho Cut, I completely forgot that it learns Confusion. Unfortunately for Gallade, they try for the catch, it fails, they're forced to throw energy, and now Gallade is about to get absolutely Honchkrowed. In comes Honchkrow. Look at the Pecks go. 6 Pecks, full farm down. They can't even get to a close combat. Man, that is just devastation. Picking up a very tricky lead in the next match, Shadow Golurk into Malamar. Now, one of the things that made Golurk a lot more difficult to use was the rework to Malamar. Getting foul play every 10 turns means that Malamar just strictly wins the 2s, whereas prior to that change, Golurk actually won the 2s. So I honestly like the idea of doing exactly what Drew did, which is just play it out, take your shield advantage. Opponent is now going to send in Empoleon, banking of a ton of energy on the Honchkrow, and now we have the Empoleon mirror. I really like banking all this energy as well, because if there's going to be one thing that wins this game, it's going to have to be the energy on the Honchkrow. The opponent also has a ton of energy banked on that Malamar as well. This could end up being an extremely dynamic endgame with charge attacks getting fired left and right. Opponent is going to farm up a ton of energy, but they snipe with the Malamar. I think they might need the superpower to knock this out. They throw the foul play. It does not KO. Empoleon hangs on and gets the fire back with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon will connect, picking up the knockout. Honchkrow looking to switch back in. It's Honchkrow versus the world. Empoleon on 1 HP. Opponent sends in their own Empoleon, but they are absolutely in Dark Pulse range. Dark Pulse lands. Down goes Empoleon in the back. That's an Overquill. I was not expecting to see an Overquill here. Overquill going to get absolutely smacked around by a Sky Attack. Sky Attack will be shielded, and there is Sky Attack number 2. Surely this just KOs Overquill. Overquill, not known for its bulk. Shadow Shiny Honchkrow taking the win, and the 2 shield flex as well. Very tricky lead in the next match. Shadow Golurk into Guzzlord. Guzzlord has such a significant pacing advantage, being able to spam out Brutal Swing every 9 turns. Guzzlord is honestly so strong into this entire team that this is going to be a really tough Pokemon to get rid of. Golurk overfarming, baiting, playing to the CMP tie. Opponent does shield up that Guzzlord, thank goodness. But unfortunately, anytime you have a Shadow Shiny Honchkrow and you have used all your shields, I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Guzzlord going to get hit with a Dynamic Punch unless they put up the shield, which they do. In comes Empoleon, and the opponent will actually throw energy. Brutal Swing not going to do a ton of damage. I believe they now have the back-to-back moves loaded, and there it is. They're going to fire off both of these moves. If Guzzlord stays in, they can force the Empoleon to throw energy. Empoleon, just wanting this Guzzlord out of here, will throw immediately, and Drill Peck will deliver a KO. In comes Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing going to CMP tie, Brutal Swing to the Hydro Cannon, and this Hydro Cannon will inflict quite a substantial amount of damage. Brutal Swing, not a particularly strong attack from a Weezing. Empoleon hangs on. In the back is going to be Golisopod, and thank goodness it's Shadow Claw Golisopod. But the question is, does Aqua Jet one-shot here? Aqua Jet almost one-shots, but thankfully does not. Honchkrow is going to overfarm to the max, getting itself as low as it possibly can. Weezing should be fully energy dry. They get 2 Fairy Winds, now they're 2 off the move. Drew will need to wait down his switch clock and try and go for a catch after 1 Mud Slap. There's the Mud Slap, there's the catch onto Empoleon. The back-breaking catch for the opponent is gonna seal their fate as Golurk gets to Mud Slap down, and that is a good game. Hopping into the final match, Shadow Golurk, oh that's a nightmare lead staring down Drifblim. Immediate save switch into Honchkrow, and it appears that the opponent does not have a great response. They stay in with the Drifblim. Honchkrow full sending a Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is going to shield. I imagine if you see a Shadow Shiny Honchkrow, you're always going to be shielding, because even if you don't know the moveset, you assume this thing's going to have a truly absurd attack stat. Opponent going to send out Gastrodon. Bit of an interesting play there, as Gastrodon, not normally a strong matchup into a Honchkrow. Opponent will throw on alignment though. Honchkrow gonna be no shielding. There is the Body Slam. Now looking to pivot into the Golurk. Golurk would love a farm down. Unfortunately, Golurk cannot get it. The opponent does make it to a Water Pulse. Oh, they're actually on Earth Power, but the important thing for Golurk is Golurk being up energy. Unfortunately, that energy lead is not going to matter as in comes Virizion, and Virizion has every ability to sweep this endgame up a shield. Golurk will fire off the back-to-back Shadow Punches, but Golurk is easily just getting KO'd here by a Leaf Blade. Virizion switches out for no reason, sending in the Drifblim, and Drifblim fails to farm down. A miscalculation from the opponent. They could have just stayed in, kept Virizion on the field. The only way they ever lose this game is if they switch out, because Virizion loses charge attack priority to Empoleon. Now Empoleon just needs to double up. Empoleon does get the double up, and the opponent actually found the lose con. Oh, that is devastating. In comes Virizion. All that energy goes to waste as they lose charge attack priority. Drill Peck double super effective, takes down Virizion, and that's a good game. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks to Drew for sending them in. As I mentioned at the start, Shadow Shiny Honchkrow is never going to be a Pokemon that you use if you care about your elo, just off the stats alone. This Pokemon has a truly monster attack stat. We saw time and time again, even in neutral matchups. The damage this thing outputs is absolutely criminal. However, anytime you have an attack stat that high, and you're in a restricted combat power format, like the Great League or the Ultra League in this case, then there's going to be a price to pay, and unfortunately that price is, with all that attack, no HP and defense. So Shadow Honchkrow, the moment it is shieldless, is basically just automatically getting one-shot by most any move it could ever encounter. So definitely a Pokemon that I'm happy gets a lot better, and these are some of my favorite changes every season, is when they go out of their way, I don't know, Niantic, Scopely, I assume it's Scopely now, when Scopely goes out of their way to try and find Pokemon that even with a perfect moveset would never be meta, but at the very least just try and make them just a little bit more playable. Honchkrow with Snarl wasn't ever really doing much of anything, but with Peck being able to actually farm things, it's not meta by any means, but hey, it is suddenly a lot more playable. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.